feel like I just watched a documentary on Bo Dukes. You know, but Bo's our worship leader, if you're new here. Bo made his dining room table. He made it. Why? Because he is Bo stinking Dukes. That's why. True story. Like a couple months ago, my family went over to the Dukes' house for dinner, and we're sitting at this table, and my wife was like, "Hey, I like you guys' table." And Bo's like, "Oh, thanks. I made it. I made it." Humble brag. All right. And anyway, my wife is like, "Can you make our family a table, Joel?" I'm like, "No, I'm not Bo stinking Dukes. There's only one Bo Dukes, people." Anyway, Bo's our worship leader. Aren't you thankful for Bo? It was like a 3-piece today and did an amazing job. I love that guy. Today actually marks like my 8-year anniversary of being your all's pastor. And thank you guys. Humble brag. Anyway, but I'm telling you, I wouldn't be standing on this stage doing this if it weren't Bo behind the scenes being like having my back. And so like I love that guy. He has helped me get where I am and get our church where we are. And so I love that guy. And he's the best. And I just want to say I'm honored to be in the presence of some men and women who are heroes and served our country. And so give it up for all the veterans one more time. You guys are heroes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Donuts don't do it justice, but you guys just enjoy those. There's no calories in those donuts. None at all. Hey, we're starting this new series today called The Table. And right now, it is 10:25. And I'm probably the only one in the room, but I start wondering what's going to be on the lunch table about 7 seconds after I eat breakfast. Anybody else do this? And I don't think you can eat breakfast too early. I don't. Okay, I think if you want to eat, a quesadilla and some Taco Bell nacho fries at 10:25 a.m., like I am not going to judge you. Now, how many of you have never had nacho fries? Taco Bell nacho fries? Okay, I am judging all of you. You need to run to the border, all right, right now and get some Taco Bell nacho fries. And you will be running to the bathroom later, all right? So anyway, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about the best meal you've ever had in your life. Like you have full permission from the pastor to fantasize in church about agave's guacamole. Come on, somebody. And so, and maybe you just maybe you're newly in love and you're sitting next to your boo. And you just leaned over and said, "Oh, baby, everything you make is my favorite meal." Give it some time, all right? Eventually, mama's meatloaf recipe ain't going to be so good. Married people, you know what I'm talking about? Right? Don't answer that question. All right. Anyway. But I want you to think about the best meal you've ever had. And while you're thinking about that, I was thinking about the best meal I've ever had. It actually took me back to a picture that I showed you all last weekend. And we'll put this on the screen. This is in 2018. We were in Mexico. And we went to this all-inclusive resort. And the best thing was, every night we could go pick a different restaurant to eat at this resort, and it was free. Now it wasn't really free, like we paid ahead of time for it, but it felt free, and I like free. Like, has anybody got the spiritual gift of cheap? Other than if you got the spiritual gift of cheap, don't go to Agave and get the guac. All right, you'll be having some heart palpitations. But anyway. Every night we would get to go to these different restaurants. And so one of the nights we went to the French restaurant called Le Brasserie. Everybody say Le Brasserie. I don't know if I said it right. All right. But it was fancy. It was a fancy restaurant. And I could tell it was fancy because I couldn't read anything on the menu. And I don't normally like restaurants like that I can't read anything on the menu. But I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but it was free. So I was like, bonjour. Give me the duck, confit, or whatever. I don't know. I'm just making words up at this point. So our group of 8, we went into Le Brasserie. We sat at this table, kind of like a table like this. And our server was Fernando. Everybody say Fernando. Fernando was the greatest server in the history of the world. The greatest. Bo knows, the greatest. So Fernando comes to the table, and he's like, bonjour. you guys can have anything you want on the menu tonight. And if you don't like it, like I'll bring you something different. Bonjour. And I'm like looking at the menu. I'm like, Fernando, I can't read anything on this menu. He's like, that's fine. I'll just bring everything to the table. And he did. Next thing I know, Bo Dukes has a squid tentacle in front of him. Like I'm telling you, I saw a suction cup, people. Like it was a squid tentacle. And I thought that was weird until I saw in front of me he put 6 snails. I'm like, do you got French toast back there? Like what do you... Something less snaily, all right? But Fernando was like, you got to try everything on the table. And so I did, and we did, all right? We tried squid tentacles, and we tried snails, and he gave us faux gras. Now, I was like, the faux gras tasted like a peanut butter mousse dessert. I was like, Fernando, I like this faux gras. This is good. He's like, oh, you like pureed duck liver? I said, say that again, Fernando? He's like, you just ate pureed duck liver. I'm like, you're a dirty man, Fernando. Like, that's... Why pureed duck liver tastes like peanut butter mousse? I will never be able to understand. All right, so he messed up bad with the faux gras. But then he made up for it because then he started bringing steak and lobster to the table. And we ate all the steak and lobster. And he's like, I will bring you more steak and lobster. And like steak and lobster, it's like raining on the table like manna from heaven. I'm like on TripAdvisor giving him like 18 stars. I'm like, Fernando. Like he's so great. And then he brought creme brulee for dessert. Somebody say praise the Lord. Okay, like I was like, Jesus, take the wheel. All right, like it's just... And we had so much fun that night. We were at the restaurant forever, all right? It's just, us and Fernando and some snails. We were there forever. And we all sat around a table like this. And it may not have been like the best food I've ever had, but it was really up there. And then the company made it a lot of fun. And then, my 38 years of life, that was maybe the best meal I've ever had around that table. And we took a picture afterwards with Fernando. This Fernando right in the middle. If you go to Mexico, ask for Fernando, okay? Like, he's the guy right there. But I got 2 questions for you, all right? First off, I asked you this up front. Did you think about your favorite meal you ever had in your life? Did you think about it? If you didn't, just pretend and, make me feel good. Nod your head, yes. Okay, I don't think anybody thought of it. Okay, but let me ask you this. The best meal you've ever had in your life, did it happen at a table? Or did it come in a greasy brown bag from the drive-thru at Taco Bell? A table or in a greasy brown bag? Table. A table, right? Happened at a table, okay? It happened at your grandma's house. Somebody said no. Okay, sorry, Granny. Maybe it happened over here in 1776. Maybe it happened at the, exquisite International House of Pancakes, okay? But it happened at a table. And when you're having like a great meal with great people, having a great conversation, around the table, isn't that the best? Is that not the best? The best dining experience of your life probably happened around a table. And I was thinking about tables this week because I wanted to share a verse with y'all. And you've heard of this verse. Even if you're here and you're like, I don't believe in any of this God stuff. There's a bunch of weirdos in this room. Okay, and we kind of are, right? But you've heard of this verse. It was probably cross-stitched on something at your grandma's house, on her table. You've heard this verse. It's Psalm 23, verse 5. We'll throw it on the screen. Well, we won't throw it on. Oh, there it is. You prepare a what? A table. A table before me. You prepare a table before me. Now, a guy named David wrote this. And David, when he says you, he's talking about God. In other words, God, you prepare a table for me, before me. So this week I was thinking, what does a table prepared by God look like? What's that like? Now, I have some ideas, and this is, maybe different than the way you would imagine a table prepared by God, but I think a table prepared by God at every place setting will be a placemat embroidered with a Baltimore Ravens symbol. Even though we lost so bad on Thursday night. But I think Steelers. Who said that? Lord have mercy. Okay, anyway. Let's move on from the football talk. All right, I think at every place, every guest would get a Mountain Dew. I think for hors d'oeuvres, there would be all-you-can-eat bacon wraps, scallops. Come on, somebody. Calorie-free bacon wraps, scallops. I think on every, plate, there will be a thick, USDA prime rib-eye medium rare steak, baby, with some lobster macaroni and cheese. And then for dessert, I think there would be a molten lava cake, because that's my wife's favorite, from Applebee's. The only good thing to ever come out of the neighborhood grill, okay? The molten lava cake. But who would want to sit at that table with me? Anybody want to sit at that table with me? Yeah, buddy. I think there will be some amazing things on that table. But I think there will be some other things at a table prepared by God other than those fun things. Do you think at a table prepared by God there will be unconditional love at that table? Yeah. Do you think there will be acceptance at a table prepared by God? Yes or no? What about peace? Do you think there will be some peace at a table prepared by God? Well, what about amazing grace? Like we just sang earlier today. Like, do you think there will be some amazing grace at a table prepared by God? I think so too. And I want to be at that table. I want to be at God's table. But here's my question for you. Here's my question. If God's table would have unconditional love and acceptance and peace and amazing grace at it, why don't we always feel those things in our life? You know what I mean? I don't know about you. I don't always feel the love. I don't always feel love at church. Here's what happened 2 weeks ago. All right, 2 weeks ago, I just got done preaching. You know, everything was good. I was leaving church. I was going to go get my car. And I don't know how you feel after church, but the pastor sometimes feels good. I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like singing peace like a river in my soul. Okay, like, I don't think we've ever sang that song. Put it on the list. Okay, anyway. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling church good. Going to my car. I get in my Civic, and I'm going to go back up my Civic. Now, I told you this last weekend. I don't have backup technology in my Civic. And so when I back up, it looks like this. So I'm backing out of my spot, feeling church good. And all of a sudden, this car flies by me. Had to be going 88 miles an hour. Michael J. Fox was in there. The flux capacitor was going like... And this car almost hit me, so they hit the beep. They beeped the horn. They put their window down, and they yelled a string of words at me in the church parking lot that I can't say, or I will lose my job right now. In the church parking lot. I think it was one of you all. I'm feeling this section right here. That's what I'm thinking. But I was not feeling the love no more. Listen, we don't always feel love, do we? We don't always feel that peace and that acceptance and that amazing grace. And so, if God created this amazing table for us with all the stuff on us, why don't we always feel that stuff? And I think David answers the question. The very next thing that David says, okay, first off, he says, you prepare a table before me. And then he says, in the presence of my what? Enemies. My enemies. And so we got God's table, and we got our trouble, right? We got a table prepared by God, and then we got the presence of our enemies. It makes us want to like crawl under the table, right? Well, we got stuff that kind of takes our focus off of the table. Now, have you noticed that we tend to experience what we focus on? You notice that? Like when I like focus on God's table, I can like experience God's peace. But when I focus on like my trouble, I like get run over by my enemy going 88 miles an hour, okay? We tend to focus on, or we tend to experience what we focus on. And have you ever like lost focus? Has that ever happened to you? Lose focus? I lose focus all the time. Here's what happened. I think it was the same weekend that Michael J. Fox almost ran over me. But our family went to this Halloween event near our house in the Ocean View community, and it was called Cops and Goblins in the Park. And it was put on by the Ocean View Police Department for like the community of Ocean View. Now, I don't know how to say this, but the community of Ocean View is full of a lot of, well, I want to say old people, but I don't want to offend anybody in the room, okay? Well, it's full of vintage people. Is that less offensive? No, probably not. Anyway, but Ocean View has got some older folks in it, so I thought, there's not going to be anybody at Cops and Goblins in the Park. It's going to just be like me and my kid. This is going to be good. It's just going to be us. And we showed up, and listen, no lie, I think there were 17 billion people there. And like, I think Fernando flew in from France to be at the Ocean View Parks and Goblins thing. Anyway, so it was chaos, so many people there. And we're in the middle of this crowd. And at one point, Stacy is right in front of me, my wife. And my two kids are in front of her. And like, I'm just following the path, okay, through the pack. And for 2 seconds, I lost focus on my wife. 2 seconds, because some weirdo was dressed up like Chucky. I'm like, this is a family-friendly event, sir. Get out of here, okay? So anyway, I looked at this like Chucky guy. It kind of freaked me out. And so I went to go grab onto my wife. True story. And I was like aggressively going to grab my wife romantically, okay? Like and so as I'm going to grab my wife, out of the corner of my eye, I thought, that doesn't look like her outfit. And my hands are around this woman. And it is not my wife. It does not even look close to my wife. She is vintage, this lady, okay? True story. I almost aggressively and romantically grabbed an older lady at Cops and Goblins in the park. Do you know how fast I would have been in prison? It's true. What happened? What happened was I lost focus. And we in life, we lose focus. And in our relationship with God, we lose focus. And sometimes we lose focus on God's table. We lose focus on His amazing grace and His peace and His acceptance and all the things that He has, His unconditional love that He has for us at the table. And we focus on our trouble. We focus on Chucky. David says, he calls it our enemy. And so I want to just give you 3 ways that our enemy takes our focus off of God's table. All right, so if you're taking notes, the first one is this. People can take our focus off the table. People can take our focus off the table. So I told you earlier that this is like my 8-year, time of being here. And these last 8 years have been like the best 8 years of my life. Absolutely love what I do. It's stressful. I had hair when I started. I did. I used to style and everything on Sunday mornings. Don't have to do that anymore, okay? You all stress me out and I'm bald now. But anyway, I love what I do. But I remember when I first got started, maybe a year or two into this whole thing, one Sunday, this couple, grabbed me right here in church, and they're like, oh, we want to have you over one night, Pastor, and we want to talk about how we can help out at the church. And then the lady, she said to me, she was like, and I'll make you my famous banana nut bread. I was like, I'm there. Where is it? When? Like, I'm there. And so I'll never forget that one night, I spent the night away from my family. I went to these people's houses, and I was super excited to get them, number one, I was excited about the banana nut bread. Come on now. And I was excited because they said they wanted to help out. And at this point, I was the only person on staff at the church, which means I was the pastor, I was the youth pastor, I was a door greeter, the coffee maker, the toilet plunger. I was all the things, okay? And I was so excited that they were going to help. So I was going to make them director of toilet situations. Now, I was going to get them involved in something. So I remember I walked in, and I didn't see any banana nut bread. And I smell it. You could smell when somebody's made banana. I'm like, I don't smell no banana nut bread. And this couple wasn't smiling like they were smiling in church. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. And I don't tell any of you this to make you feel bad for me, but I sat down with them, and for 2 hours, they absolutely ripped me apart. For 2 hours, they told me everything I was doing wrong as a pastor. They told me I was doing a disservice to this community. They told me I was doing a disservice to this church. And I thought, I don't think there's any banana nut bread. This feels like a paleo diet situation, is what this feels like. But man, they just, took me up and down, for 2 hours, and I left, and I thought, I don't think they like me. I don't think I'm going to get like a pastor's appreciation card from that family. And it honestly, after I left and I thought about what they said, it bothered me. And I thought, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. I'm not really sure. And, it bothered me. Now, I didn't tell you that to make anybody feel bad for me. I told you that because we all have a story like that, where somebody tried to take our focus off of doing good things, right? And, for me, I used to think my job was to make everybody like me. But then I remembered that Jesus was perfect, and they crucified him. So, not everybody's going to like me. Or you, right? And listen, my point is sometimes I let my enemies define me instead of letting my God define me. Sometimes I let the presence of my enemies steal my identity, and I lose focus on my God-given identity. Has it ever happened to you before? It happened to me that night. And I've learned that the quickest way to forget about what God thinks about me is to focus on what other people think about me. And so, I don't want to do that. Now, I don't know what people think about you or people have said about you. Maybe people have said, you're a bad spouse, or you're a bad, parent, or you're a bad worker or friend, or, you're a bad driver. Whoever almost hit me last week, you're a bad driver. All right, anyway. But I don't know what people have said about you. Maybe people have said, they're the person in the family who's divorced. Or they're one relapse, they're just a relapse waiting to happen. And people just kind of dogged you. And listen, at the end of the day, people don't get to define you. God gets to define you. And if you're going to let anybody define you, don't let it be your enemies. Let it be your table people. Now, here's what I mean by table people. After I left that night when I got beat down at that person's house, I decided I want to write down on a Post-it note everybody in my life whose opinion about me actually matters to me. And so I got a Post-it note, and I wrote it down, all the people in my life whose opinion of me actually matters to me. And I put it in my wallet, and I've carried it around for 6 years. This is my Post-it note. This is everybody in my life who, if they tell me, if the people on this list, if they say, hey, you need to check yourself, I check myself. Because these are my table people. Okay, and now you can see it's short. It's not a lot of people on this list. Okay, top of the list is Fernando. No, it is God and then Stacy. Okay, that's the order for me. But these are the people, like I said, if they say check yourself, I check myself. These are the people who they have my back. They're not trying to stab me in the back. These are the people that if I get arrested at Cops and Goblins in the Park, they bail me out. Okay, you need bail money friends, all right? And you might be like, is my name on your list, Pastor? Maybe. Are you a Steelers fan? Then it's not on the list. Okay, anyway. Sorry. But here's my thing. I need this list because when somebody who's not on this list tries to take my focus off of what God wants me to do and what God is doing in me, I don't listen to those people if they're not on this list. Right. They got to be on this list for me to care what you think about me. And so this list, maybe you need a Post-it note with the people in your life whose opinion of you actually should matter. Why? Because listen, your calling, my calling is too great to let our enemies take our focus off of Jesus. Your calling is too great to let your enemies take your focus off of God's table. But people take our focus off of God's table all the time. Isn't that true? Here's the next one. If you're taking notes, the past can take your focus off the table. The past. Now, I was thinking about the past this week, and I took me back to 1992 when I was 10 years old. How many of you remember 1992 or when you were 10 or anything? I'll allow you to remember anything. You remember anything? Okay. Some of you remember that. Some of you had a hard spring break in 1988 and everything's a blur after that. Okay, so I don't know. But in 1992, I had a goal in life. My goal in life was to be too cool for school. Too legit to quit. That's what I wanted. And so, like that, when you're 10 years old, that's all you kind of care about. And so I told you guys this a while back, but I used to rock a Dallas Cowboys starter jacket. I think we have a picture of the jacket that I used to rock. Come on. Who used to have a starter jacket, at least wanted a starter jacket? Oh, yeah. I don't know why Cowboys, but whatever. So I used to wear a starter jacket in 1992. In 1992, I had a Jan Sport book backpack that looked like this. Come on, who had a Jan Sport? Oh, yeah. Pull those straps tight if you're not cool. Loosen them up if you are cool, all right? In my JanSport backpack, I had a couple of these. Come on now. Trapper Keepers. You had to have some Trapper Keepers. And in 1992, I always wanted this pair of shoes. I think we have a picture. Reebok Pumps. Who remembers Reebok Pumps? Oh, yeah. Now, I couldn't afford these. Our family, we didn't have any money. We didn't shop at the Foot Locker. We shopped at the Roses. All right. We got BK Knights on clearance. That's the kind of shoes I used to rock. But I remember being in Roses, and they used to have all the tape cassettes in 1990. You remember tape cassettes? In 1992, this tape cassette was on the shelf, all right, by this guy right here. Anybody know who this is? Billy Ray Cyrus. What is it? Don't tell my heart. All right, just stop. I am a little less proud of my church in this moment, but it's okay. Oh, but listen, I don't remember the song lyrics as well as Amy, clearly. All I remember is this guy's hair. I call this the achy, breaky, bad, mistakey. All right, that's... And so some of you got the achy, breaky, bad, mistakey right now, and I'm not judging you, all right? But here's my question. Yeah, don't be jealous. See there. My question is, anybody ever have a bad haircut in the past? Anybody have like a bad haircut? You know, a mullet, a perm mullet. In 4th grade, my buddy Brian had a perm mullet. I wanted one so bad, but my barber, Don the barber, next to the Roses, he did not do perm mullets, okay? So no perm mullet for me. But we all can look at bad haircuts in the past, like they're achy, breaky, bad, mistakey haircuts. But you know what? Bad haircuts aren't the only thing from the past that we regret, right? Everybody in this room has something in your life that you regret from the past, okay? And you might say, oh, not me, Pastor Joel. I live by no regrets. I tattooed no regrets above my navel. I would personally regret that if I were you. But anyway. But listen, nobody in this room, or everybody in this room, everybody who's watching online, has something in your past that you regret. And isn't it true that in most churches that you go to, it's okay if you talk or say something about a regret you did 10 years ago, but it's not okay to talk about something you did 10 days ago? Isn't that true? Like most churches, you can walk in, rocking your suit. You can, have a big old perm mullet with a bigger Bible, and you can like stand up in front of the church and say, I remember the last time I sinned 10 years ago. And I've been sinless for 10 years because I'm righteous Frank from Milton. Okay, and listen, you can say that in most churches, but listen, when I talk about past regret, I'm not just talking about 10 years ago regret. I'm talking about 10 days ago regret. 10 minutes ago regret. 10 seconds ago regret. And everybody in this room, everybody who's watching online, you have something in their life that you regret. And sometimes we can get so focused on our regret that we lose focus on the table. And at God's table, He doesn't focus on our past. This is important for somebody. God doesn't focus on your past. God focuses on your potential. And if God's grace at this table was good enough for you 10 years ago, it's good enough for you 10 minutes ago. And so at Bay Shore, in our church, in the basement, it doesn't matter what you've done. It matters what Jesus has already done. It matters what Jesus wants to do in your future, because I 1,000% believe that the best is still ahead of you when you lean into Jesus. I believe that. And, some people look at me like, oh, you're just being optimistic. Listen, I am not an optimistic person. But I do take Jesus at His word. And my Bible tells me that His mercies are made new every morning. His mercies are made new every day, every minute, every second. And so what that means is you get a spot at the table. You get a seat at the table no matter how far you've fallen. Is anybody thankful for that? You got to be thankful for that. But the past can take our focus off of the table. And the last thing is this: problems can take our focus off the table. Have you ever noticed, or maybe you tend to do this, that you focus on what's wrong more than you focus on what's right? Anybody noticing a problem right now? Anybody focus on a problem? What's the problem? I heard it over here. Problem is. See? Some of you will not be able to hear anything else I say. I did that on purpose, y'all. I'm like you. I tend to focus on what's wrong more than I focus on what's right. Like, for instance, last Sunday on my way here, you guys remember the time change last weekend? Okay, the time change. I'm driving on the way to church. I'm having like a worship moment in the car. I'm in it, and I get to do it. I look down at my clock radio, and my clock radio time is wrong. And I can't focus. Now, by the way, I drive a 14-year-old Civic, and my car, listen, it might as well be the Ford Model T. Like, I'm pretty sure Henry Ford assembled my personal car. Okay, like it is an old car, and I've had it for 11 years. And that means I've had my car for 22 time changes. Do you think I can remember how to change my time? Absolutely not. Okay, you got to work at the CIA or Radio Shack or something to figure out the time radio thing in my car. But I'm on my way here, and all I can focus on is that the time is wrong. And so I'm like, I got to fix this right now. I'm driving through Dewey. I'm starting to fix it. And listen, I'm swerving all over the road. I look like a drunk driver driving through Dewey, okay? So I'm just blending right in. Okay, so anyway. But I can't remember how to fix the time. So I'm like pressing buttons. I'm pressing button combinations. I'm turning the windshield wipers on. I'm hitting the median. I'm like putting the high beams on. And what happened is, I think I was trying to set it on like 837 or something. But I kept on passing it by 1 minute. Does this ever happen to you? And I had to go all the way around. Like I went around the carousel like 18 times. In Dewey. Why? Because all I could focus on was what was wrong instead of what's right. Everything else in the car was working fine, but not that. And so we have a tendency to focus on what's wrong instead of what's right. Anybody else do this? I don't know. I asked you this before. Yeah. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, maybe your kids got their report card this week. You know, and let's imagine they got, you know, an A in math, an A in, you know, history, an A in gym. But an F in science. 3 A's and an F. What's the one thing you're focused on? The F, right? And so we have a tendency to focus on what's wrong more than what's right. That's the problem isn't that this is spelled wrong. The problem is we focus on what's wrong more than we focus on what's right. Now, we all have problems. Turn to the person next to you and say, you got lots of problems, buddy. Lots of problems. Look, we all have problems. None of you woke up this morning and said, oh, God, thank you for my problem-free life. Did anybody say that? No, we all have problems. The reason I know you all have problems is because you all tell me all your problems every Sunday. In the church lobby. Listen, and you know the days of like having a filter around the pastor? Those are gone. Way gone. Okay, the way I describe the conversation you all have with me in the church lobby to my wife when I get home is I'll say there was 3 A's and an F. Some of you will get that on your ride home. Okay, but the filter is gone. I actually appreciate that about you all. But all kidding aside, some of you are facing some big problems in your life right now. And that breaks my heart. But you know who's bigger than your problems? Your God. My God is bigger than your problems. Our God is bigger than your problems. And I'm here to remind somebody that the problems that you're focused on, you have a provider who is bigger than that problem. And so you got to focus on Him. You got to focus on the table. You got to focus on your provider more than you focus on your problems. And by the way, maybe your big problem in your life, you know, you have that one big problem or several big problems. It's that F in science or whatever it is that you got. Okay. I just want you to know that you have 3 A's in other areas of your life. Like sometimes we count our problems and we should be counting our blessings. And maybe you're in church today so you can lose focus of your problem and start to focus on the blessings in your life. In fact, turn to the person next to you and say, you got more blessings than problems, buddy. You got more blessings than problems. So let's throw this verse back up on the screen. David says this. He says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies, in the presence of those people, or in the past, or the presence of those problems in my life. And so here's my question for you. Are you focused on the trouble in your life, or are you focused on God's table? The trouble, that makes you want to hide under the table, or you focus on God's table? And if you're focused on your trouble, welcome to the club. Me too, and I'm the pastor, right? And my point today isn't like, here's your 3 steps to a problem-free life. Hallelujah, Brother Butch, okay, or whatever. Like, a problem-free life does not exist, as evidenced by my check engine light that is on in my car currently, right now. A problem-free life doesn't exist, but do you know what I'm learning? We'll put this on the screen. I'm learning that in the presence of my enemies, in the presence of my trouble, God's presence is always present. In the presence of our enemies, in the presence of my enemies, God's presence is always present. His unconditional love, His acceptance, His peace, His amazing grace is always present. But it's up to you. What do you focus on? Are you going to focus on the trouble, or are you going to focus on God's table? And here's why I think you might want to focus on God's table. Because the very next verse, this is what David says. Okay, we'll throw this out. This is verse 6. David says, surely. Everybody say, surely. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life. Surely, when I focus on your table, God, your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life. Now, the trouble's still there. I mean, David said that God prepares a table in the presence of our enemies, but when we focus on God's table, God's presence is always present with us. Okay, His presence and His goodness and love is like a JanSport backpack, baby. And it is pulled tight. And it follows you all the days of your life. Even in the presence of your enemies. Maybe His goodness and love follow us even closer in the presence of our enemies. So the question is, are you focused on your trouble? Or are you focused on the table? Are you focused on your trouble, or are you focused on God's table? I'll end with this. Most of you guys know that I have 2 kids. I have Nora and Nixon. I have a picture I want to show you guys of Nora and Nixon, actually. This is from them at Ocean View. Ocean View's Cops and Goblins in the Park. So Nixon's a cop. We'll talk about that in a second. Nora is Princess Jasmine from Aladdin. Oh. Now, my daughter, Nora, I mean this. That girl is a princess. Listen, if you have, a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old boy, you tell him, Nora's a princess. That girl is a princess, all right? And she's been such a almost perfect kid since she was born. Like, when she was born, after she was born, me and Stacey were like, we're so good at parenting. We're so good at this. Like, we should teach a class. And then we had Nixon. 2 seconds in, we're like, cancel the parenting class. Actually, sign up for the parenting class. We're terrible at this. We dress Nixon up like a cop because he's going to meet a lot of them in his day, okay? Like, just kidding. Not really. Anyway. But Nora, my oldest, she's a little mini-me in some ways. Like for instance, she likes to go to bed early, and she likes to wake up early, okay? And Nixon, he's just getting started at midnight, okay? Different way. Nora, she is risk averse. She avoids risks. Nixon will run into a burning building, okay? Nora, she oh, well, I lost my train of thought. Nora is anxious, though. That's one thing that her and I share in common. Like, she is anxious about everything. Most recently, she was really nervous about, will she be able to buy a house one day? She is 8 years old. And she's like, I don't know if I can afford it, Daddy. I'm like, you were 8. Drink a slushie, all right? But she always, this is her face most days. Okay, I have a picture. This is, Nora is like, me too. Okay, who else gets anxious owl face all the time? Like, Nora's very anxious, and when she was in kindergarten, Nora had like crippling anxiety. And she was, nervous about the school bus, and nervous about, what was going to be for lunch, and what was going to be like on the school schedule that day, and nervous about what if she needed to change of clothes, and and she would talk to me about all that stuff. And listen, I'm trying to console her, but I'm as anxious as she is. So I'm like, I'm worried about that stuff too, Nora, right? Like, I'm just like worried all the time. But Nora's biggest worry was that when she was in kindergarten, that she couldn't get to us. That she was like alone, she felt like. And so my wife is the G-mote, the greatest mother of all time. She's the best. My wife had this idea. She started drawing a heart on Nora's hand right here. And she said, Nora, when you're at school, she would draw that heart on her hand before school. And she said, when you're at school and you're worried about all those things, all this stuff that, gets through your mind, I want you to look down at this heart. And I want you to know that I'm with you. And that you're not alone. And that I'm going to be here when you get back. And that I'm going to protect you. And that you have nothing to worry about. Just focus on this. And I'm like, what are you, Dr. Phil? That is brilliant. That is amazing. And so for months, every day before Nora got in the school bus, she would draw this heart. I think we have a picture. I took this morning, so this isn't when Nora was in kindergarten. But she would draw this heart right here on her hand. And before she'd go to school, she said, just when you get kind of off focus, just look down at this and remember that I'm with you. I'm always with you. And I love you. And I'm going to walk with you through anything that you face in kindergarten. And I'm telling you, I think this changed her life when she was 5 years old. This little heart changed her life. And so I want everybody in the room to do something. There is a pen in the back of everybody's seat. And if you're on the front row, there's a pen under your seat. I want you to grab that pen. Come on. We're all going to get ink poisoning today, okay? I want you to grab that pen. Online family, go to the pen drawer, go to the JanSport backpack, grab a pen, whatever you got to do. I want you to grab that pen, and I want you to draw something right here. Now, it doesn't have to be a heart. If you're manly like Butch, you don't want to draw a heart. You want to draw a rattlesnake or a Kodiak bear. I don't know, but just draw something right here. It can be a heart. It can just be a star. It can just be a dot. It can be whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. But just draw right there on your hand. The pens aren't working. Just imagine they're working. And if it doesn't work, when you get in the car, draw something on your hand. Okay, you all are writing like your biography on your hand. Just. All right, come back to me. And you can do more writing later. But come back to me. This week, when you want to focus on your stuff, when you want to focus on those people that are not on your Post-it note, when you want to focus on the past and the achy, breaky, bad, mistakey, or whatever it is, when you want to focus on that thing that's making you anxious and it's your problems, when you want to focus on those things, and you're going to want to focus on those things this week, I just want you to slow down, and in that moment, I want you to stop and I want you to look at this. And I want this heart, or whatever it is that you drew, I want you to focus on this because I want you to remember that God prepares a table for you. And his table is good. I mean, there's steak on it, and there's lobster mac on it, and there's molten lava cake on it. But more importantly, there's unconditional love at his table. There's acceptance at his table. There's peace at his table. There's amazing grace at his table. And sure, there's enemies still around, but just focus on his love. And focus on how much he's gone through to show you that he loves you. And when you focus on his love in the middle of your problems, his goodness and mercy will follow you all the days of your life. So who's willing to do that with me this week? You're going to focus on this instead of focus on your trouble. So let me pray for you guys. Jesus, I'm thankful that you give us something to focus on besides our troubles. And the Bible says that you prepare a table for us. You do that. You prepare it for us. But our enemies are present. And God, I know that there's troubles in our life, and the people can kind of take our focus off of your table. Our problems can take our focus off of your table. The past, there's so many things that take our focus off of your table. But God, I pray this week when we want to focus on the wrong thing, we'll change our focus and we'll focus on the right thing. We'll focus on you. And we'll just be able to know that you are bigger than the problems that we face. And so God, I pray that we'll walk out of here not focusing on our troubles, but focus on our provider. So God, thank you for giving us a place to focus on. And we just love you. In Jesus' name, amen.